Hey guys, and welcome back. Today I'm gonna show you how I made up my new Bushcraft knife. Well, let's go deep into the subject. I decided to make a new Bushcraft knife to substitute this big one I used for a long time with proficiency when working to extinguish forest fires with the park rangers in my country in the early 80s of the past century. This time I decided to make something smaller with a more rounded blade, but always using cordage for the handle instead of wood or cow horn. So I sketched the idea from scratch. Using the computer, I designed a profile of what would have been the final object. That is a monolithic blade with the handle wrapped by 7 strands Type 3 550 paracord. I choose to design a full-body knife for robustness reasons. In my opinion, a bushcraft knife could also be used as a makeshift axe to cut wood, beating its back with a claw. The overall length is 26 centimeters, that is about 10 inches. The blade is large 4 centimeters, 1.6 inches, and 3 or 4 mm thick, that is 0.16 inches, all based on the kind of metal I had the chance to use. I cut 4 meters, 13 feet of paracord. Then I cut a rectangle of wood to superimpose the knife profile on, and, in the end, I begged for a piece of steel car spring knocking on my uncle's car repair company. You can also buy a better steel from local dealers if they are willing to sell you small pieces of metal. I started with the making of the prototype, tracing the edges of the knife on the small piece of wood, trying to be more precise as possible, following the original drawing. In other words, without using carbon paper, I realized a kind of mold, and then I retraced the grooves on the wood using a pen, getting the cutting lines for the jigsaw. Following the cutting lines, in 5 minutes work, I cut the profile of the prototype. I drilled the holes using a 4.5 mm drill as soon as I realized that 4 mm was too small to pass the paracord through. I finished all the edges with sandpaper, up to reach the result you can see on this image. A prototype of the blade whose boundings match with the original drawing. I only decided to move the 3 holes a couple millimeters toward the inner body of the blade to increase the robustness around those points. Wrapping the paracord around the handle may be boring or challenging. Using 4 meters of 7 strands paracord, that is 13 feet, I was able to realize 2 complete loops. Using 5 meters, 16.5 feet, you get 3 loops. This way to realize the handle allows you to adapt its thickness to your hand. If you think to add a security wrist loop, please consider to add about 50 centimeters of cordage, about 20 inches. Preliminary tests gave good results. Obviously the prototype is very light because it's made of wood, but the main goal was to verify the overall shape and look. In the metal model, I will carve a crest on both the head of the handle and the back of the blade, close to the cordage handle, to give the thumb the right pinch, avoiding it to slide when pushing the blade. The bow near the bevels, I did not make them in the wood prototype of course, offers a protection to the forefinger when the hand pushes the blade forward. From wood to metal, things get tough. Starting from the wood prototype, I marked the profile of the blade on the steel, using a thin point permanent marker. I marked the center of each hole the same way, then I curved them a little bit for the final drilling. I started cutting the steel, trying to be as close as possible to the reference lines. This will avoid me to spend a lot of time on the grinding machine to clean the edges. I don't have a professional belt grinder for metals, so in the beginning I use a Smith clamp to hold the piece in place and a tungsten carbide bimetallic saw blade with thin, high-density teeth. You may use the best gears you may find if you have a good budget, of course. Now it's time to use my small rotating grinding machine, a tool made by my father, recycling an old tool someone thrown away, thinking it no more useful. Then he added a pulley connected to an old washing machine electric motor. I worked with care to file away all the metal up to reach the reference lines and make the new object match the wood prototype. I round all the edges of both back and handle of the knife, using a couple of files as well as different kinds of sandpaper. Next step is the make of bevels that, in this model of knife, are quite small. I work as a craftsman, first using the rotating grinder, then using a couple of different files. This way makes me proceed by subsequent adjusting, checking continuously the symmetry of the blade. Hard work, but also satisfying. I drilled 3 holes, rounding the edges, making the crested pinch as decided before on the back of the blade, close to the handle. In my opinion, 2 centimeters are enough. This means less than 1 inch. I round the crest using thin sandpaper. Then I carve another pinch crest on the head of the handle. This comes useful to enhance the grip when using the knife as an awl, and the thumb helps to hold the tool. The cutting edge is the last task before the heat treatment to harden the blade. In the end, I try to improve the look, removing both freezing oil residuals and carbon particles using a 220 grain sandpaper. Yes, it's true, and I know it. The result is not even far comparable with any commercial knife, but to me it's a great satisfaction to use a self-made bushcraft knife. The paracord loops around the handle finish the object you can see in this last slideshow, together with the fodder that I realized using budgetary pieces of cow leather and strings made of the same material. My brand new homemade bushcraft knife is now ready to do its job, and it's time to test it in the open during my next outdoor adventure with my son. Thanks for watching and for your time. I'll be back with a new video as soon as possible. Bye.